welcome to FrightFest.
Hello.
How does it feel to be here this year?
Pretty great. I had a short film play FrightFest Halloween 2 years ago. I wasn't able to come, and now that I'm here, I can't not come. It's a hell of a festival. Yeah.
So you've got Lifechanger this weekend. I've seen the film.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting take on the shapeshifter genre. Tell me where the concept came from.
So what I've been telling most people is that in 2014 I was just on a bus trying to come up with a movie that I can make for very little money. And I had this idea, what if I saw myself in public? Which of course is Denise Villeneuve's Enemy. But from there the seed of that idea kind of grew into what Lifechanger became. But the really personal angle of the film comes from a writing partner and best friend I had for a decade who passed away in 2012. And just sort of the fallout of all that and how that made me feel, and you think back of like what could be done differently to have a different result, and that sort of influenced kind of in a way what the character is, I guess. Yeah.
I think one of the things that really surprised me is when it started, I thought it was going to be one kind of film, and then by the end, it felt like something completely different. Yeah. It's quite emotional.
Yes.
How do you balance the horror of what goes on with the emotion?
I think that any true horror starts in some kind of level of emotion, whether it's fear for the fear of death, or whether it's simply the idea of something being pulled away from you or taken out of your life. In this particular case, I figured the horror itself would come from the actual emotional impact of what this character goes through and the story itself. So the balance came from treating it as a story first and a character piece first, and then just his condition and what he is brings true horror out of it, because obviously death follows him like a shroud. He has to bring it. He believes he has to cause this pain and this death.
And I was really impressed with how the actors are actually quite consistent. It's obviously he takes on different forms, different people, very different actors, but somehow there is a consistency there. What did you do as a director to pull that out of the actors?
So I ran this thing called the Drew Boot Camp, and the way we started is I wrote up an entire character history for the character. I made sure all the actors had it and read it so they knew where the character was coming from, and then we had a session or two where we sat around a table and just discussed the character at length and came up with tics and ways of walking and specific movements that they would all share across their performances, because I knew they're different people, they're different ages, they're from different walks of life, they're not going to have identical performances, but at least they'd have some sort of uniformity to the way they approached the physicality of that performance, so that the Drew would come across in each one of them. And then from there I just let them go off and do their own prep however they did it, and we'd rehearse, and that's pretty much where we got to where we got. Yeah.
So what would you say has been the biggest challenge in making the movie?
Every movie is a massive challenge. It doesn't matter what it is, but we had so little budget, and we had 20 days to shoot it, which is actually a good number of days for a low-budget film. But we had a lot of practical effects. We had more locations than we had shoot days. So just getting this sizable crew and this sizable cast of 25 speaking roles or something like that into a movie that probably cost a fifth of what it probably should have cost was a giant challenge. And there were days where we just would run into things on set where you can't predict it. And one day in particular, there's a scene later in the movie, I don't want to give anything away, where there's a fight that happens, and we almost lost that entire location and all of our footage that day. And it would have been very hard to remount that and find a new location midway through. So there's just always, filmmaking is like a war, and you put a platoon of people together, and then you go and you fight the battle, and then you hope that you win at the end. And some movies don't, and then it's brought out to everyone else, and you really don't find out if the movie's successful till everybody else watches it and tells you it is. Yeah.
It's an incredibly tight movie. You use every single minute in it. It doesn't feel like there's any filler in there at all.
Well, that came in the edit, because my first cut was 118 minutes, and then now it's 84 minutes. So I dropped over 30 minutes out of the overall film, and we were refining the script going to camera. We were refining it on set, and then once it actually hit the edit, we just realized there were certain things that there were nice scenes, but they didn't really add overall to the story. So I wanted it to be the tightest. As tight as possible without losing the core and the heart of the story is what I wanted to go for, because I'm also a programmer. I program for Toronto After Dark, so I watch every genre film every year, including the ones nobody sees, and you start to see that running time is a real issue, and people get antsy in their seats, and some films can support that running time, but some stories work much better in a very concise manner. Yeah.
So my last question for you is, which horror film do you wish you'd written and directed?
Oh, Jesus. In the Mouth of Madness? But that's, I don't know, that's probably one of the most influential films of my life. But I also don't think it would be as good a film if I wrote and directed it. It's John Carpenter. What are you going to say to that? So, yeah, but that one.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time. Good luck at the festival, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And you.